Hello all, welcome back. In our previous video, we learned about physical properties of metals and non-metals. In this video, we will learn about chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Let's see what are the chemical properties. Reaction with oxygen, reaction with water, reaction with acid, reaction with base. We are going to learn in detail about each of them. Let's see the reaction with oxygen. What are the reactions of metals with oxygen? When metal react with oxygen, they will form metal oxide. You all are familiar with rusting of iron. Let's see what is happening in this rust. When we expose an iron rod into oxygen, a layer of ferric oxide, iron oxide is formed on them. This is a layer of iron oxide, that is ferric oxide. And when this ferric oxide react with water, a reddish brown layer is formed. This is actually the rust. Let's see what is the chemical formulas of that. First, iron react with oxygen to form ferric oxide. This is ferric oxide. Now, this ferric oxide will react with water to form this compound, which is called the rust. Now, if we take some pieces of rust and put it in water, now take a red litmus paper. If you put this red litmus paper in, that will turn into blue color. That means this is a base. Red litmus turns to blue means that is a base. So this rust is a basic component. Let's see one more example. When we heat magnesium ribbon over the flame of a Bunsen burner, it will burn with a bright white light. And the final product will be magnesium oxide. Let's see what is the chemical formula of magnesium oxide. Magnesium, when react with oxygen, will form magnesium oxide. Now, put some of this magnesium oxide in water and try to dissolve it. It will partially dissolve. And to this, if you put a red litmus paper, it will turn blue. That means it is also basic in nature. And this is the chemical equation. When magnesium oxide react with water, it will form magnesium hydroxide. From these two examples, we can conclude that metals when react with oxygen will form metal oxides, and metal oxides are basic in nature. Like iron, copper is undergoing a lot of chemical reaction when it is exposed to a moist environment. That is known as the corrosion of copper. Let's see what is corrosion of copper. This is a teapot made of copper. When we expose this into moist environment, what will happen? After a long time, green patches will form over them. Let's see what is this green thinking. When copper react with water, carbon dioxide and oxygen, it will produce copper hydroxide and copper carbonate. This is the green patch. Copper hydroxide and copper carbonate. now to the next reaction, non-metals reaction with oxygen. Like metals, non-metals also react with oxygen to form non-metal oxide. If you keep a small amount of sulfur in a metal cap and wrap it with a metal wire so that you can hold it properly and place this over the flame of a Bunsen burner, what will happen? This sulfur will start to burn. Now keep this immediately inside a glass beaker and cover that with a lid so that the gas produced won't escape. Cover it with a lid, then the gas won't escape outside. This gas is sulfur dioxide. After some time, when we pour a small amount of water into it and put a blue litmus paper into that solution, that will turn red. That means the product formed is acidic. Let's see what is happening here. First, sulfur when react with oxygen will form sulfur dioxide. This sulfur dioxide, when we add water, it will react with water to form sulfurous acid. This is sulfurous acid. That means non-metal oxides are acidic in nature. Reaction with water. Let's see what happens when metals reacts with water. Metals plus water gives metal hydroxide plus hydrogen gas. When we put some sodium into a beaker full of water, it will actually burn with bright orange fumes and it will explode. To prevent this explosion, first cover this sodium with cotton and put it in a beaker of water, and you must keep a distance from the beaker. After some time, if you go and touch the beaker, it will be hot. Let's see what is happening there. Sodium, when react with water, it will produce sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Metal hydroxides are basic in nature. If you put a red litmus paper into the solution of sodium hydroxide, that will turn into blue. Non-metals generally don't react with water. Phosphorus, which is a non-metal, is highly reactive with oxygen, and in this reaction a lot amount of heat is produced. To prevent that, phosphorus is stored in water. Now, reaction with acid. Metals reactions with acid. Metals plus acid gives metal salt plus hydrogen gas. To prove this, what we are doing, we are keeping a test tube here and putting some zinc into it. Now add a dropper full of hydrochloric acid. Bubbles will form. In this reaction, bubbles will form, and if you bring a burning matchstick over the lid, you can hear a pop sound. This pop sound is actually due to the presence of hydrogen gas. Let's see what is happening. Zinc, when react with hydrochloric acid, it will produce zinc chloride. This is the metal salt. Zinc chloride and hydrogen gas is liberated. Non-metals generally don't react with acids. Reaction with base. Let's see what happens when metals react with base. Not all metals react with base. Some metals, when react with base, they will produce metal salt plus hydrogen gas. To prove this, first we have to make a base. Like when sodium, we did before, when added to water, we will get sodium hydroxide. We know that this sodium hydroxide is a base. And if we take this sodium hydroxide solution and if we put an aluminium foil in it, then what happens, the reactions happen, and if we keep a burning matchstick over that, we can hear a pop sound here also. That is due to the presence of hydrogen gas. Here sodium hydroxide and aluminium will react with water. Sodium aluminate is formed with hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas is liberated during this reaction. Non-metals generally don't react with base. Some non-metals will actually react with base, but they won't produce any hydrogen gas. Now, displacement reaction. Displacement reaction is nothing but an active metal displaces a weak metal. One metal displaces another metal. Let's see an experiment. First, take a beaker and add some copper sulfate into it. This copper sulfate is a blue color solution. Now, to this add some zinc. What will happen? The color will change to colorless. Copper sulfate plus zinc. This zinc is more reactive than copper sulfate. Now, what will zinc do? Zinc will replace this copper in copper sulfate and produce zinc sulfate. Because zinc is more reactive than copper, zinc displaces copper from copper sulfate and zinc sulfate is formed. The released copper will deposit it in the base as a red powder. Let's see another reaction. Take a beaker of copper sulfate. To this, if you put an iron nail in that, the color will change to green. What happens here? Iron is more reactive than copper. So this iron displaces copper from copper sulfate and iron sulfate will form. This released copper will actually, this is the iron nail here, this released copper will form a layer over that. In another experiment, take a beaker and pour some zinc sulfate into it. Zinc sulfate solution is inside. Now zinc sulfate is here. Now add copper into it. Nothing will happen because zinc is more reactive. Copper is less reactive. Copper is not able to displace zinc from zinc sulfate. Similarly, take another beaker and pour some zinc sulfate into it. Then add an iron nail to that. Nothing will happen. As iron is less reactive than zinc. Iron cannot displace zinc from zinc sulfate. Now, zinc and iron are more reactive than copper. This is the displacement reaction. Now, let's move on to the uses of metals. Mercury, as you all know, used in thermometer because mercury is a metal which is liquid at room temperature. Iron used to make nails, machines, and utensils. Copper used to make electrical wires. Aluminium used to make foils and aeroplane. Zinc used for galvanizing iron. Why we are galvanizing iron? To prevent the rusting. We are galvanizing that with zinc. Let's see what are the uses of non-metals. Oxygen gives us life. We all know without oxygen we can't survive. Nitrogen used as fertilizers and in food packets. Nitrogen is an important compound for the growth of plants, and nitrogen is used in food packaging to keep the food fresh. Carbon as a fuel. Iodine is used as an antiseptic. Chlorine for water purification. Let's do a recap. In this video, we learned about the chemical properties of metals and nonmetals and uses of metals and nonmetals. Thank you all.